Check 1 2, check 1 2 3 4. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of One Man Stream. In today's episode we're going to create the graphic that you see right here. I call it the One Man Stream Production Dashboard. And how we're going to do this is we're going to bring in a couple different types of data sources. We're going to bring in one that is an XML, which is actually part of the vMix API. And then this top part here is actually populated through a spreadsheet that I made as a production layout. This is the very first item in our spreadsheet. And as I click through it, you'll see how it works. Let's go to the first break. And you can see right here where it says pregame break 1. It tells me that the segment is 3 minutes, and it tells me there's 8 elements in this particular segment. So let's go to the first element. This is element 1 of 6. This is a 30-second commercial for Thomas Car Wash. And then we would go to the next one. And this is element 2 of 6. And this is a State Farm 30-second commercial. And then as I click through these, you can see the rest. This is element 3 of 6. Element 4 of 6, element 5 of 6, and element 6 of 6. And we have some additional fields right here. After we hit 6 of 6, then it tells me up here what the talent is going to be doing. So it tells me now that when we come back with this coach's comments rejoin that we have pre-recorded, that the talent is going to do the interview with the visiting head coach. This little section right here is set up as overlay and other assets. And what this tells me is not only what segments to play, it also is going to tell me what overlays I need to be putting up and what other assets I need to put up. So our one-man stream production dashboard. Our focus today on one-man stream. Before we get started today, I'd like to remind everyone, if you get an opportunity, stop by our website, onemanstream.com, where we have the graphics and many of the vMix UTC controller setups that we've created throughout this series. So if you get a minute, please check out onemanstream.com. Now I need to give a little background before we begin today's tutorial. In April, I went to NAB, and while I was at NAB, I was able to meet this gentleman right here, and that's a picture of myself and John Mahoney. If you're not familiar with John Mahoney, you should be. He is the gentleman that runs Streaming Alchemy, and I believe his company is NeuralNet, and he does I think it's called Live to View software that his company makes. And while I was there, I was able to meet up with him, and we talked a little bit, and it reminded me of one of the tutorials of his that I watched some time ago, and it was actually this tutorial right here, and it was called Creating a Production Dashboard. Well, in this tutorial right here, John does a great job of explaining how to utilize the API that vMix has to bring in XML in order to use that as a data source. So I'm kind of using that as a backbone of what we're doing today. And then on top of that, I'm bringing in this spreadsheet that I created. And this is what the spreadsheet looks like. The way that I'm going to utilize this is that I'm going to bring it in as a data source. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to map the graphic to these individual elements that are up here along number 1, which is kind of the title bar. And you can see where it says talent instructions, segment time, segment status, and then it brings in the individual elements. It says what the element time is, special note. I have a few things with the special note, and I just want to give myself a little heads up of what I have coming up. And then this last thing is overlays and other assets. And then that's when I have different things that I need to bring up, different logos for some of the sponsors and whatnot. If you look right down here, you'll see this hamburger menu, and you'll see it's in red. If I click on it, it brings up this dialog box right here, and I'm going to look under data sources. So we'll click there, and you can see right now I've added 2 data sources. I added an Excel spreadsheet, and I added this right here that says clip status. And let's go under settings. And you can see that this is where I utilize the vMix API. And then with XPath, I am telling it exactly what I want it to look for. So this is how we're going to bring in the clip status into our graphic. But while I have this open, let me go ahead and I'm going to copy this right here, and I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to minimize this. And then I'm going to bring in my Chrome browser, and I'm going to go up here in the title bar, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste, and let's see what happens. Now it brings in, this is coming in directly from vMix, and it starts off telling you the version, the edition, presets, and then it comes to inputs. Then after it has all the inputs, it has the individual inputs listed. Well, what we want to do is we want to just use whatever input is active or whatever input is in program. So what we had to do, and I'm going to say it once again, John's going to explain this a lot better than I am. If you get the opportunity, please stop by Streaming Alchemy and check out the tutorial that he did. But I'm going to do my best. Let's go back to our DataSource Manager, and we're going to click on Settings. And so you can see the XPath right here, /vMix, and then /inputs, and then /input, singular. And then we have to put in something here, an argument, so that it's going to bring us back what we want. So what we want is, we want the number of the input that's in vMix that's active. So that's how we did this, and that's how we bring it in as a data source. And this is the graphic that we're going to create today. The bottom portion here, the gray rectangle that's bound by this blue border, this is actually showing us a lot of different elements. It's showing us the duration of the clip, and this is in milliseconds. It's showing us the current position in the clip. Over here it's showing the name of the clip, and then down here it's telling what the state is. It's either going to say completed or paused, something along those lines. This next thing is mute, and this will tell us whether we have the clip muted or not. This is the buses. It'll tell us what bus this is appearing on. Right now this one is just saying it's on master. It'll tell you whether you have the loop function on, and then lastly it'll tell you what the volume is. All of this information right here is going to come in via XML through the vMix API. This top part here, all this information is being brought in through an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to show you the layout of that spreadsheet and how we bring these particular elements into this graphic. Okay, and as you can see, we have our Excel spreadsheet back up here. And I'm actually going to be controlling it by the vMix UTC. And I'm going to click on here for Data Select First Row. And it's going to take us to the very first column. If you look at the graphic, you can see where the graphic says Game Segment, Element, Segment Time, Segment Status, Event Time, Overlays, and Assets. All those are coming from the very first row. So let's just go across the first row, which is actually the one number 2. Segment is game opening. You can see the game opening reflected on the graphic. The segment time is 1 minute. The segment status is 1 of 2. You can see that the element is actually the disclaimer. The element time, this is actually pre-recorded. Over to the far right where it says overlays and other assets, you can see where it says 1 game intro overlay. So I know that I need to bring that up. So let's go to the next row. I'm going to hit the next button on my vMix UTC layout, and indeed it goes to the next row. So now in row, this is going to be number 3, we're going to see where it says game opening. Time is going to stay the same, but it switched to segment 2 of 2. And then the element is now pre-game intro, which is also recorded, and we need to bring in the announcer overlay. So we're going to bring in an overlay that shows the 2 announcers, and it gives their names. So that's all on row 3. Let's go to the next row. So this is row 4. So what it's telling me now is it's telling me that the talent instructions are going to have general comments and the weather forecast. And this is just in case my guys get off track. It's just a way that I can bring them back to the part of the production layout that they're currently on. And you can also see over to the far right under overlays and other assets where it says, it's supposed to say game weather, but it says game weather. So we can change that. And anytime we change anything on the spreadsheet, if we want the corrections to take place, we need to come over here and we need to click this little save button that looks like a floppy disk. And you can see where it immediately changed to Game Weather Live Read. Now, the reason I do it this way instead of through the cloud like I used to is sometimes it was taking 30 to 45 seconds for the cloud information to re-update. And that just wasn't acceptable. So I decided to go ahead and just keep it on keep a local copy on my computer. Now I do have it in the cloud in case that asset would happen to become corrupted or something like that. On the day of the show, I could download this entire spreadsheet. So let's go to the next line. And this is going to bring us to our pre-game break 1. And we can see that it's going to be a 3-minute segment. We can see that there's 6 elements here. And then let's go to the next line. That's going to take us to line 6 now in our spreadsheet. And we see that it's pregame break 1. The segment is 3 minutes. And this is segment 1 of 6, which is a 30-second spot for Thomas Car Wash. And all we're doing is we're using these 3 buttons right here to go up and down in the spreadsheet. This one here, Data Select First Row, it's going to start us out at the top of the spreadsheet. Let's bring this down a little bit. It's going to start us at the very top of the spreadsheet. Then every time we hit the next button, it's going to bring us down in the spreadsheet. And anytime we hit previous, it's going to bring us up in the spreadsheet. So that's how we negotiate the spreadsheet via vMix UTC. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how I created this in GT Title Designer. And it's very easy to do. We're just using 2 of the buttons in GT Title Designer. We are using the ABC button, which puts in text, and we're using this rectangle button right here. So if you're savvy with making graphics in GT Title Designer and you find this part boring to you, you can skip to the next section. The sections are listed in the menu bar of this tutorial. So all you would do for this is you would come in and you would click a rectangle. You would drag out the rectangle the size that you want. Then I went up here under Format, and then I gave it a skew of 20 on X and 20 on Y. I made the fill color white, and then I gave it a border that's black, and I made that border 5. Now the second thing that I did was this element right here. And what I did with this is I brought in a rectangle again. Kind of brought it over top of this other one. The radius is a lot higher. I made this a radius of 40 on both. And then I made the inside white like the other one. So we're going to click on Home. We're going to click Color Fill. We'll click on White. We'll go with that same black border, and we're going to give that border a thickness of 5. And you can see the border right there. Not quite the same as the other one, but you get the idea. So then I clicked on the ABC, which is the text block. I bring this in, I stretch it out. I click the center here. I'm going to center it in the middle up and down. I'm going to center it right to left. I'm going to use this font right here, and I'm going to click on this right here where it says Configure Automatic Text Box Resizing, and I'm going to click on Shrink. And that'll guarantee that whatever my text is will stay inside this box. So I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to type in One Man Stream Production Dashboard. And that's how we did these 2 components. The next component is this interior rectangle. Did the same thing, clicked on rectangle, brought it in like so, made the fill color on this one a very light gray, and then we made the border a bluish color, and it looks like we made it a thickness of about 4. Now we have to make sure that we go up here, and then we also, under Format, we do the radius again. So let's do another radius of 20. And you can see that is starting to take shape. Now, all these elements right here, and I'm going to just show you over here to the side, all these elements right here are all text elements using the ABC text block. So all I did is I brought the first one in, and we'll call this talent text, which is this one right here. I brought this in, I changed the name of it over to the right. In this status bar, I changed it to talent text, and then I right click and copied, and I right clicked and pasted, and it changed it to talent text 1. But then what I did is I went in and I changed it to talent data. So I went back to this one, I copied and then pasted it, and then I brought it down here and I changed it to segment text. And then I copied the segment text and pasted it and moved it over, and I changed that one to segment data. So you can see what we're doing. I made this one element text, element data. I made this segment time text 1, but this should be called segment time data. This one here is segment status text, segment status data, element time text, element time data, and then this is overlay and assets text. I just called it overlay text because we only have so many letters we can put in these spaces. And then I called this one overlay data. Same thing for all these here. I called this one position text, this one position data, duration text, duration data, clip name text, clip name data, state text, state data, mute text, mute data, bus text, bus data, loop text, loop data, volume text, and volume data. So once we have this graphic right here created in GT Title Designer, we need to map it with that data source so we can populate the graphic with that data. So we're going to right click and we're going to bring on the title editor. All these text fields, this position text, duration text, clip name text, those are static. We already have those fixed on the graphic. It's the data fields that we're going to have to map to the data source. So we're going to click on this one right here that says position data. We're going to go to data source, and you can see the information is already populated because I've already mapped this graphic. We would go to the clip stats because we are getting this information from the XML file that we brought in as a data source. And you can see right here where it says XML, and then under column we have all the columns in here. So we're going to be using title, we're going to be using state, position, duration, loop. So since we're dealing with position data, from the drop-down menu we choose position and click OK. This next one is duration data. So we click on this, same thing, we're going to use the clip stats, which is the XML. We're going to go to the drop-down menu, we're going to choose the column that says duration. And you can see as we're doing that, it's actually bringing in whatever is currently being reflected in that data source. The next one is clip name data. So again, clip stats, XML, we go to the column, we're going to choose title, and it brings in the title and it's showing desktop capture because that is what we currently have active right now. And then we're going to go to segment status. And now when we get into the clip information, this information is coming to us through our Excel spreadsheet. So let's go segment status, click on the data source. You can see it's the Excel spreadsheet. You can see that it's page 2, which is the production sheet. Since we're working with segment status, from the drop-down menu, we're going to select segment status, and it's going to bring in what's currently showing in that data source, and that's one of 2. The next one is overlay data. So we're going to bring in that same spreadsheet. We're going to use that same sheet, which is the second sheet production. And then this one here is overlay data. So we're going to bring in the information from overlay and other assets. And that's all we're doing for the remainder of this. We're mapping each one of these with the particular column in that spreadsheet. We have one more little hurdle that we have to get through, and that hurdle is the fact that we're only bringing in information that is in the active status. Okay, so the way that we're going to get around this, because it has to be active for that information to be going into our graphic, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to where it says audio clips, because this is where I have all my audio clips. And I'm going to click on this button here. And what I did on this audio clips is I also brought in this webcam. So anytime I have this shot active in the background, I'm also going to have that audio clips active. So let me show you what that does for us. Let's go ahead and back out of that. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to bring it to output.
Baptist Health Crestwood on Kentucky 329 is conveniently located approximately 1 mile from I-71. For more information, visit baptistcrestwood.com.
Okay, now the last thing. Obviously, you don't want the people at home to be seeing this. This is something that you want to be able to use during your production. So what I do is in my vMix UTC layout, you can see over here in the bottom right hand corner, I have this right here. You can see right here in this window in the bottom right, which is actually an NDI monitor, where it says clip information, you can see where it says vMix output 3. Well, let's click this drop down menu here. This is all of the NDI feeds that I have coming in into my vMix production. So I chose vMix output 3. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go to our production setting right here. And what we need to do is we need to go up here to this cog. I'm sorry, not to the cog. We need to go up here to where it says settings. Click on settings. And then we're going to go to output. So we're going to click on outputs here. And you can see where we have output 1, output 2, output 3, and output 4. And this is actually going to vary depending on which version or which edition of vMix that you have. I happen to have the 4K version, as you can see up here. So I have the ability to do 4 different outputs. So the way that I generally do this is I have output 1 is the main output. I have output 2 as a preview. And then I have output 3 set up as this input 18. Now, you need to make sure that you have all of these green if you're using all your different inputs. I'll toggle this one. If they're not active, they're gray. And if they are active, they're green. So you want to make sure that you have these in the green state. Now, right here where it says input 18, let's go back to our production. And input 18 is this right here, which is our production dashboard. So in output, you can see that I have output 3 set on input 18, which is the production dashboard. So then what I did is I came over here to vMix UTC and I went up here under widget. I clicked on widget, then I came down here to external data, and then I came here to where it says NDI Monitor. And I don't really have any open space, so I'll put it right there. And there it is. And so what I did when I set it up for the first time is I just came over here at the drop and clicked the drop down menu, and then I just selected output 3. And then you're going to see where input 18 comes in on output 3. Now I will say one thing. There is one additional thing you have to have, and actually when you download any of the newer versions of vMix UTC, it does come with the download. You have to make sure that you have this right here, and this is vMix UTC NDI Monitor Data Provider, DLL. You have to make sure that you have this, because when you set this up for the first time, you click on this select file, and then you send your browser to this file right here, the one I just told you about. You click OK, and it brings that in. Now you're able to utilize the NDI monitor. The way that I would use this on game day is I would bring this up. I know this is my game opening now, and I need to find the audio for game opening. So like I said, I don't have all the assets yet. We haven't built everything out for the season yet, but I would come up here to the one that says disclaimer, and I would click on disclaimer and I'd play it out. All right, so the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over these settings here. I did a tutorial several weeks ago on how to use playlists with audio and video clips to play out the assets in your production. And I'm not going to go over that again, but that's all this is. This is audio clips. This is video clips. And then this right here are different elements. I just have these here, for example, like this one right here. It's a long time ago. And these are just photos that I have. Just for the demo today. But I would use different overlays and things like that right here, and then it's going to send it to program. But these are the buttons I wanted to show you right here. Data select first row, and what I did is I used DataSource select row, and then you have to use 0 for the first row, and then you have to put the name and the table in for that data source. So this is the Excel spreadsheet, and you'll recognize this from the data source, Excel \CSV, all capitals, then a comma, no space, and then the name of that second page in the spreadsheet, which was production. On this one right here, the next button, the command that I'm using is data source next row, and then we're using that same name and table. This button here for previous, we're using data source previous row, and the same Excel \CSV, comma, and production. Those buttons allow us to move up and down in that spreadsheet. We have the graphic mapped with the data sources. Now obviously we don't want our audience to see this graphic right here, but this graphic will not be populated unless our audio clip is active. So what I did is I went to multi-view and I brought in this camera right here, which is our webcam that we're using for this tutorial. I brought this in on layer 1. So now whenever I play the audio, it's going to go to that clip. The audio is going to be active, but you're not going to be able to see it. And then with the audio being active, it's going to be populating our graphic that we created. And I'm going to go over here now to my vMix UTC. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click this button right here, and you can see the information behind it: execute link, play audio, and then you can see cut direct to the audio clip. The execute link, play audio, that actually comes from up here under audio clips. And when we set this up, we check the we check the play pause box to the left of that, and then we put in the link that says play audio. So when we click this button right here, it's going to execute this link. It's going to play the audio. Ooh, no, it's not, because I got a misspell in there. Okay, now I have it correct. Now it's going to play the audio, and then it's going to cut direct to the audio clip. And so I'm going to go ahead and push that button now.
Hi, this is Paul McCartney on behalf of RAD. If you're drinking, you can't drive my car.
And I'm going to mute the audio clip so you can hear me, but you can see that in the position's clipping away, so you know that the audio clip is playing. The duration is 34,000 milliseconds. It's about a 35-second clip, I believe. And you can see the status down here. It's saying that it's running, that it's not, that it is muted because I just muted it. It's going out to these two buses, master and bus A. The loop is off, and if I slide over this way, you can see what the volume level is set at. Once the clip is completed, it goes to completed. So that was the only tricky part about this tutorial, was figuring out how I would be able to access that information without showing it to everyone at home, because the API little shortcut that I showed you, that is for active. So it's only going to pull that information when that particular input or that particular asset is active. That will conclude our tutorial for today. If you get an opportunity, please stop by onemanstream.com and check out all the items we have there. We have all the previous tutorials that we've done, as well as a lot of the graphics that we created and a lot of the vMix UTC controller setups that we have. They're all just a few dollars a piece, but it's a way that you can help support One Man Stream. If you like what we're doing here, please give us a thumbs up and a like. Please make sure you do subscribe so that you'll be alerted as soon as new videos are posted. And as always, thank you so much.